welcome to a very special edition of GamePoint down here in Frisco, Texas. We are outside the Allen Event Center. Joining me is Spectrum Sports editor Colton Poole and our very own from SUTV, Allie Thorson. I'm Joel Sipper, your host. We are down here once again for coverage of the championship game. Guys, it was a long road for both these teams. What did you notice specifically out of NDSU's road that really defined them?
Well, out of NDSU, I think you're looking at the 33 consecutive win streak earlier in the season, and then they had that huge hiccup to UNI, exposed a lot of weaknesses for this team, and we all kind of wondered how they would jump back. Well, they jumped back in a big way, not only getting the number 2 seed in the playoffs, but having that really outstanding run against South Dakota State, Coastal Carolina, pulling out those wins at the very end. You know, we were kind of questioning whether or not they would be able to do that going into the season, but they've certainly done that, and they just destroyed Sam Houston State in the semifinals, and now they're here deservingly so.
I think the way that we look at this is, we look at the South Dakota game, and you know, people had their questions about Carson Wentz at the start of the year. Is this kid ready? And I think he proved in that game that the lights aren't too bright for Carson Wentz as he led that drive back. And then from there on, I thought it was John Crockett's time to shine as he single-handedly took over ball games with big runs.
I think what we want to see from Carson Wentz is something great he said earlier today is invincibility leads to destruction. He is mature enough to lead this team right where we hoped they'd be. And let's not overlook the defense. The defense has held strong and pretty much taken the win for the past 2 games leading up to this. So our defense held strong, and we're partially here because of them.
And then as we look at Illinois State's run to the playoffs, I know as the regular season went on in the Missouri Valley, both teams, you could tell that the fans and players were sort of just keeping a close eye at the other people. And then now in that first game, they made a statement game against UNI.
And we were talking about NDSU and how good they are. Well, we cannot underestimate Illinois State by any means whatsoever. It's easy to say, they're the number 5 seed, NDSU will walk in and get the win. When you're looking at it on paper, they have the 9th highest scoring offense in the FCS and the 19th scoring defense. There are a lot of threats from both sides of the ball for Illinois State, especially Trey Roberson, the quarterback, and Marshawn Koprych, the running back. Those guys, Marshawn has rushed for over 2,000 yards this season. Trey Roberson, responsible for more than 4,000 yards of offense. Those guys are really going to be explosive, especially here in Frisco.
I know with Koprych having broken so many records for Illinois State, our defense is really going to have to buck up and stop him. The Bison have, going to have a tough match against him.
I know me personally, I view Illinois State as the hottest team coming into these playoffs right now. The way that they shut down David Johnson out there, and then the way that they took over against Vernon Adams. Vernon Adams, such a dual threat. He did get his yards and they did get his points, but they managed to outslug him. And then UNH, the number 1 overall seed, that they went in and shut them down.
And I think it's really funny comparing these 2 teams when you're looking at it, because Illinois State and NDSU are co-Missouri Valley Football Conference champions, and that's because they went 7-1 in the conference. They didn't play each other in the regular season, which is really crazy considering now that they're meeting, of all places, in the FCS National Championship. And they both lost to UNI during the regular season, and it's funny because UNI dismantled both of these teams during the regular season, and they exposed a lot of weaknesses. If you're looking at NDSU, you're wondering, because David Johnson, without much of a quarterback game at all, ran all over NDSU. Yeah. So you're kind of wondering if Koprych is going to be able to do that against NDSU. We saw that a little bit with Western Illinois having a strong running game against NDSU. Zach Zenner from SCSU had a couple strong games. So we'll see if maybe the rushing attack is a little bit of a vulnerability for the Bison on defense. And
you mentioned Missouri Valley Conference being in the playoffs. They have 5 teams in the playoffs, and we heard earlier today that there was really no surprise that 2 Missouri Valley teams would be in this championship game. And when you look at how strong this conference is, it really is no surprise.
Well, as we gear up for the game, let's look at NDSU. We're very familiar with them. who do you think are the players to watch on both sides of the ball for you?
Well, I think the running backs from both teams are going to be the players to watch, certainly. John Crockett on pace for 2,000 yards. He only needs 80 yards to get that 2,000-yard mark. And this is interesting, we talked a little bit about this, that this is the first season since 2010 which they haven't had two 1,000-yard rushers, so it's going to be a lot on John Crockett to get the ball rolling, get the ball going on the ground attack, and to see if Carson Wentz is going to be able to build off that, because against UNI, with their only loss of the season, they didn't have much rushing attack, and they didn't have much offense at all. So John Crockett's going to need to be the beginning and the end for NDSU. And if you're talking about NDSU defense, I think it all starts and ends with Carlton Littlejohn. I think he's the leading tackler of the team with over 100 tackles, and he's the leading communicator. He's the defensive leader. There is Kyle Emanuel to watch for as well, but I think it's going to be Carlton Littlejohn to watch out for.
I completely back you up with Carson. I mean, we're looking at he's averaging 191 yards per game. And when you look at John Crockett, you said he needed, what, 80 yards. He's averaging 128 yards per game. He's going to get the record. Those two are mine. And I'm partial for the Bismarck-bound Carson Wentz, but I really think as poised, a little Bismarck connection, as poised as he is in the pocket, and he's gotten better all season long, he's definitely a player to watch for me.
And then on defense, who are you looking at?
No, I was going to say Colton Hugel. Colton Hugel has proved himself throughout this entire year, and listening today at the press conference just how mature he is, and him and Carson Wentz said they just want to play this game. Carson said earlier today he just kind of wanted to get on the plane, go to bed, get and play this game, and Colton Hugel agreed. They just want to do this.
And I don't think we can really underestimate the impact of Kyle Emanuel. I know we talked about Littlejohn, we talked about Colton Hugel. Yeah. But the Buck Buchanan Award winner, you can't really forget about that.
And I think it's going to be a big part of him, too, on this game is they run that read option. The quarterback is always looking at that DN, riding him, seeing if he's going to get the ball or not. And then, too, on offense, we said it, it's obvious. Both teams know each other. It's going to be a battle within the trenches. But something that might be a little bit of an X factor is Zach Raw. Now, there are a lot of questions remaining around him, whether it's going to be a Grant Olson situation where he'll get some snaps. I look at the wide receiving core. I look at Zach Raw, Trevor Gerhardt, and Gary Woods. We saw earlier in the season when Raw was out, or when he was aching, when he was at Southern Illinois and Indiana State, that even though he really couldn't get that separation, NDSU took their shots. They made the cornerbacks keep honest, and they made it so they can't stack up in the box. It's going to be interesting if NDSU does that, so that at least they might be able to hit something, or two, they can get enough room for John Crockett to do his thing.
I think Zach Raw is going to be a huge impact on this game, whether he plays or not. If he doesn't play, I think that decreases NDSU's chances a lot more than if they did have him, whether or not he's at 100% or not. Because if he is at, 60% and he's on the field, at the very least, he's posing a distraction or a little bit of a decoy for Illinois State's defense. But if you're going back to the wide receivers to watch out for, if Raw isn't 100%, I think your RJ Urzendowski is your guy. I think Carson Wentz and he have had a definite connection, and they've been able to have those explosive plays which build off of the run game. And I mean, that's vitally important when you're a ground and pound team. Those explosive plays, you can't put into words how important they are.
Well, we've taken a look at the players, but before they've gotten there, they've gotten their own chance to go to the Texas Barbecue Bowl. Our own Allie Thorson has a story.
Returning to Frisco for a fourth straight time, the Bison are no stranger to the Texas Barbecue Bowl located at the main event. The event provides a southern taste and a chance to relax. The event also gives both teams a sneak peek of their competitor before the big game on Saturday.
And this is a time for them to let their hair down. Friendly competition out here. They're going to have bowling competition. The athletic director is going to have a barbecue eating competition. It's about having fun.
Before the players compete, they get a chance to dive into the Texas-style barbecue. And after, they get a chance to simply go out and embrace their inner child.
The most important part of what we do is make sure this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the student athletes. Many of them, this is their last game. They're graduating. They're not going on to pro ball. This is an experience. They deserve it. They're working hard in school, and they had to earn their way to a true championship game to play right here in Frisco.
The competitions involve the athletic director's barbecue eating contest, speed billiards, bowling, and the Battle of the Meltdown. NDSU is 2-1 heading into this year's Texas Barbecue Bowl. While the Bison are veterans at this event, it was Illinois State that stole the show, sweeping all the games at the event. Reporting from Frisco, I'm Allie Thorson.
All right, thank you for that package, Allie. Now, let's look at the keys to the game here. What is going to decide this? Colton, what do you think is?
I know we talked a little bit about it, but I think it's going to be the rushing attacks because that's where both Illinois State and North Dakota State get their games going from. It's going to be a ground and pound game, physical game in the trenches. But I think also if you want to look at, what is going to be the difference maker, Trey Roberson and Carson Wentz, the air attacks, because they're going to be able to put their teams over the edge and make those explosive plays against these really solid defenses. So I think that both the quarterbacks and the running backs are going to be players to watch in this one.
Mine's the 12th man of Bison Nation. We have, 70 to 80% of Bison fans coming all the way down to Texas. This is just going to be another home game for the Bison.
I think, too, this weather right now, I know it's a little bit chilly and a little bit windy, but I think what it's going to come down to is this weather is who has the bigger guts. When it comes down to, it's a battle of the trenches, those hits sting that much more. When they're zipping the ball, it hits your hands that much harder. If you're on the sideline, like let's say your offense is out there doing their thing, one side of the ball is going to be there. They're going to try their best to not get stiff and cold, but you could see something like that.
Well, I know if you're from North Dakota State, this is football weather. You love this. This is, and especially if you're exercising, it's going to be pretty cool temperatures for you to be in.
And I know Illinois State's not that far south either. But
right, absolutely. But
when you have going in from the Fargo Dome to that controlled climate out to this outdoor stadium, it is going to make some sort of an impact.
They still practice outside though,
it's
too.
true.
Yeah.
Seeing them a couple times out at practice, and I think they take that North Dakota pride thing on their sleeve where they go out there when it's snowing without sleeves on. I don't know about that.
That's a little much.
But I do know that they obviously play inside the Fargo Dome, but like you were talking about, Carson Wentz has such a bullet of an arm that I don't think it's gonna make too much a difference because these wide receivers are used to the football
sting.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And both of these teams are so physical that the cold is just gonna be another maybe a little bit of pain. But I mean, these guys are college football players. They're men. They're going to be able to handle it.
They're manly men.
And, and something else to talk about, too, is the field conditions. I know last year was absolutely horrible, but this year I walked around it a little bit.
You've seen the tarp on the field.
Yeah, the grass is going to be a lot better this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, now, what we haven't really sort of went into that in-depthly is Illinois State. I mean, that Trey Robertson and Maurice Coppridge. I know Trey Robertson, he likes to play like the Man of Steel. He actually wears a Superman shirt underneath his pads. I mean, what about this guy?
Pulling a little Cam Newton, I see.
Yeah.
Well, when you're going into a big game like this, if that's your confidence booster, that is your confidence
And I think, too, that defensive line for Illinois State is so big. They're all 6'2". You see a lot of them in the 200s, high 200s. You have the two defensive ends on the outside. You have Barwin, and then you have number 4.
David Perkins.
The Ohio State transfer. There's a load. That whole defensive line, they have 2 with 8 sacks and then 7.5.
I mean, Ohio State playing for the championship against Oregon. When you have a player coming from that school, you know he's good, you know he's big, and you know he's going to be a problem.
And fun note, Ohio State connection, Ohio State and Oregon are going to be playing here on Monday at the AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, not that far away.
Jerry Jones's playpen. Yeah, right now Dallas is college football, the capital of the world in college football. So, yeah, it's definitely fun to see. Fun atmosphere in Frisco. That's for sure.
It is a fun atmosphere out here right now. Now we're going to bring you our own tradition of sidewalk stampede, and we're going to bring you what Bison fans think the score is going to be come Saturday.
What is the final score of tomorrow's game going to be?
Tomorrow's final score of the game is going to be 31-13.
In whose favor?
Oh, Bison all the way, all day long.
I think it's going to be a very odd score, like 13-2.
Can you guys give me a prediction what the score is going to be?
I'm thinking Bison 35, Illinois State maybe 20.
I don't know.
35-0.
27-25.
Who's favorite?
NDSU.
What do you think the final score of tomorrow's game will be?
I was assured from the guy at Shield in Fargo, 32-24. And he told me if not, I get 75% discount Sunday.
35-13.
And who's favorite?
Oh, come on. The fourth ring, you know it. The Bison.
My sons, I have two sons. We have two sons, excuse me. Eric Olson and Peter Olson, numbers 72 and 50. Are we excited? Can you add they're going to be part of history when the Bison win their fourth game tomorrow? 35-21, good guys.
21-3, North Dakota State.
Oh, hell yeah, I agree.
Give me a prediction. You seem to be full sure that the Bison are going to take this. What's the score going to be?
The score is going to be, I'm going to predict 37-7.
A blowout for the Bison.
What do you think the final score of tomorrow's game will be?
I can't even count that high.
Who's going to win tomorrow's game?
Bison Nation has their own predictions. Us, what we like to call ourselves experts, have our predictions.
That was not planned at all.
All right. So, Allie, come Saturday, what do you think the score is going to be and who do you think is going to win?
You can't get me to pick against the Bison. It's just not going to happen. I've been looking for this four-peat for a long, long time. Let's go 48-35, high-scoring game.
Wow.
High-scoring game.
High-scoring game.
Go big or go home. Bison take it.
All right, a little bit of a shootout.
You know, I've been having headaches trying to wrap my head around this game because it's so evenly matched between Illinois State and NDSU. And like we just talked about not too long ago, is that I would look like an absolute fool if I picked Illinois State against NDSU. And I want to pick them really bad, but I'm going to go with NDSU simply because I think they have the defense to stop Trey Roberson and Marshawn Kopridge, because you know they really haven't had as good of defensive matchup as they will face against NDSU, even in the Missouri Valley. So I think it's going to be 21-17 NDSU.
The way I look at it is they talk about limiting this dynamic duel. One of them's going to get their game, and I think the guy that they shut down is going to be Marshawn Kopridge. However, we've been around this team 4 years. We've been here for 4 years. We've only witnessed this team lose 3 times. This is such a senior class. And remember, the South Dakota State game, there was a feeling, how are they going to do this? Last year, the UNI game, the way that turned, there's something about the Bison that comes, when it comes time, they answer the bell every time. And I think too, in every single championships that they've been here, they've had their plays, they made their plays. The fake punt, the Travis Beck interception, the blocked field goal last year, CJ Smith interception. Someone is going to step up for NDSU, and someone is going to make a play. What I think it's going to be, 27-20 Bison.
And I think when we've had to hold our breath throughout the games this season, especially at SDSU, when things were just not going our way, I'm going to give you a little love here. I'm going to quote Aaron Rodgers, just relax. That's all the Bison fans need to do. That's all this team needs to do.
This Packers fan is loving it right now.
If they can relax, stay focused, which we've seen them do all season long, they will get the win.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for watching this special edition of GamePoint here in Frisco. Make sure to stick with us for your post-game highlights and your post-game coverage.